What's up, everybody?
Morning.
How's it going?
I'm
Robert.
excited, man. I'm excited. This is going to be a little bit different for us. It's health adjacent, let's call
It's
it.
health adjacent. Yeah. Robert Christophor. Now, how do I say your last name? Coppes? Coppes?
Coppes.
Coppes. Okay,
Okay.
great. So Robert Christophor Coppes, welcome. Thank you for taking time to stop by.
Well, it's very nice to be here with you. I enjoy talking to you very much. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, man, it's definitely our pleasure.
I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Where are you geographically?
I'm in Amsterdam, and
You
Amsterdam
are?
is
Okay.
the capital city of the Netherlands in Europe.
I feel like you're explaining that to us because we're American.
Yeah. So, guys, Europe.
Not everyone
It's,
knows
Europe.
it.
There's
I
a
know
lot of
people-
water
There's
to the
There's
left
a big
of you.
ocean in between us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's east of England. Yeah.
Yes. My wife actually just got back from a week over there for a business trip, actually. She,
In the Netherlands.
Yes.
Yeah, they had a whole conference in The Hague, and they spent a day on either side of that in downtown.
Wow. Yeah, I hope she
Yeah.
enjoyed it. The Hague is a very nice city.
She loved The Hague. I think she was 50-50 on the city. She went, so it was like a Tuesday in Amsterdam first, and she said it was not great. And then it was a Saturday in Amsterdam. She said it was much better. So I feel like,
Maybe there's more going on the weekend or something.
she had a very weird experience, actually. And I just remembered this, but like, I'd love to hear your reflection on this, Robert. Like, she was walking down the street, and obviously, and she works at a company with places all over the world, right? So they all speak English because it's the common denominator, right? So they're walking down the street and they're speaking English, and these two younger girls out of nowhere, unsolicited, said, "In Amsterdam, we speak Dutch." And they kind of like were like kind of pissy and like a little irritated about it. And they looked at him, they're like, "The hell's wrong with us?" Like, what? They were just, and I'd never heard that. I've been all over the world. I try to not be the American in the group, but at the same time,
You're the American in the
Well,
group.
I'm the
That's
American in the group. I
strange.
can't really change it. So, but yeah.
That's so
Have you seen
strange.
that? Is
I
that
never
like a
heard
weird?
anything like that in the Netherlands? We all speak English,
Yeah.
and
That's what I
so
thought.
it's a second
we're
language.
really ruining our public image globally. Like, I thought it was
Yeah.
bad before, but in the last couple of months, we've really just destroyed it.
Yeah, we've really kind of
That's
taken
true.
a
And it's
step
going to be destroyed even further.
Yeah.
Business politics, maybe we should move on to something else.
No, it's
Maybe your
You're not gonna
listeners are
offend
not
us.
very happy with that.
no, yeah. We are unoffendable, trust me, Robert. Yeah, unless we make you squirrely. But yeah, we do want to get into
we'll
this,
move
and you
on to
got
something much nicer.
you got a pretty expansive
Actually, my
topic.
family in the U.S. also have the same point of view as you have. So it's
Oh, right, I got you.
It's one of those things where I think, and we should definitely move on after this, but where the government doesn't necessarily reflect all the people. And
Yeah.
certainly I don't even think it's a majority, but unfortunately that minority is causing a lot of problems. So
Yeah.
let's
Well, I think we're hardly the first country to invent that paradigm. I mean, come on.
we're
Yeah.
just better at it than a lot of other
Yeah.
people. All the bad
we're-
stuff we get really good at real
we
quick.
get really good at. So, Robert, you got an interesting topic, and I love how Tom framed it. It's health adjacent because in some ways it's the opposite of health, right? It's the cessation of all health, right? And then in other ways it can be, it sort of attaches to why do we want to be healthy in the first place? We've joked about this for years. The only reason we want to be healthy is to not die. Like it's like at its core,
Very
it doesn't
true.
get simpler than that, right? So get us going, man. How did this
How'd
journey
you
start
get
for
here?
you?
Yeah.
Well, the topic is near-death experiences,
Of course.
and of course that starts most of the time with a medical critical situation like a cardiac arrest or an accident, a car accident or whatever, or any accident. But it's not always. You don't always have a near-death experience by this in this way. You can have. There are a lot of stories of people who have had such an experience after a very deep psychological crisis. There have even been people talking about NDEs after they had a very deep meditation or prayed a lot. And there have been instances, really, I was surprised, but I came across some of them, where they had an NDE spontaneously. And an NDE is an extraordinary experience where people go to another place, another world, which is not the same as our world. It's not material. It is sort of spiritual. It is, but it's real. They always say it's more real over there than it's here. And that makes it very interesting to research, because where is this world and how can we access it? And what are the messages that come from this world? Because those are interesting. But so it has to do with health, sort of, most of the time, not always, as I said. So that's the case.
So let me ask sort of like the most obvious baseline question, at least in my book, is have you died and come back, or is this just a field of study that you're super interested in? I'm just curious.
The latter. I haven't died yet, and I postpone it still.
I mean, what are you waiting for, man? I mean, you got to get some research in there, right? I mean,
well, that's interesting. But you know, people say who have had such an experience, it is the best experience I've ever had, but it's also the most difficult experience I had, because coming back is not really easy. It is a very difficult task to come back, because you're totally changed. You have seen something of unconditional love, which you will never find here on earth. It's not here. Even the love of a parent for his child is, to some extent, conditional. So the unconditional love it's even more than that. There are NDEs who say the word or the phrase unconditional love doesn't cover it. It's more. It's beyond that. It's so much more that we cannot comprehend it. So that makes it difficult for them to come back. And moreover, their family and their friends don't recognize them very much anymore, because they've changed. They notice that going after money and power is not something that is of their interest anymore. They find it more important to go after good relations with friends, with family, with nature, with animals, making art, making music, doing all kinds of other kind of stuff than usual. And there have been a lot of cases where the spouse said, well, this is too much for me. You changed so much. I cannot cope with this.
It's not the person I married.
There's a divorce. Yeah, there's a divorce.
Right. Which is so interesting, because like you would think if somebody was getting into that space, that would sort of be the opposite. Like you'd be like, yeah, they're not who I married, but man, this person's fucking amazing. Like, why aren't we like leaning in on this?
But maybe maybe that's the issue. Like I'm not signed up for this. This person, is somewhat carefree now, and we got bills, and the kids got to get raised, and and this guy's sitting over here blissed out 24/7 because he experienced pure love.
Yeah. Right. And it's true what you say. They come back and they have the feeling that everyone is that's the first phase. That's very interesting. There have been cases, I know a few of them, who people who came back again, and they were so enthusiastic. They said, I want to go out there, tell everyone that there is an afterlife, that there's unconditional love. We don't need to worry about anything. We're being taken care of when we die. And then they go to shopping malls and talk about this, and then people will just think, this is a lunatic.
They're crazy.
They pass by. And then they go into a depression, because they see that no one listens to them, and so there are a few cases that I came across. So I thought it was interesting how they would react at the start and then later get into a depression. Typically it's like maybe 7 years that people on average need to really readjust again to the world. And nevertheless, they will always feel a kind of homesickness afterwards. You have to understand that what they have experienced is really something. It's more real than our world. That's for one. And it is so beautiful there. They say they go into superlatives to express how wonderful this other world is, and they really long to it. Some even commit suicide, try to do that.
To get back there.
But most know that that's not the way. Okay. There's a reason why we are on Earth. That's a reason why they have to come back again. That's why they went back again. So they try to live their life again.
It's so you were describing
John.
almost like I think Eckhart Tolle talked about that, right? Like he had this life-changing experience and he was basically sitting in bliss on a park bench for like 7 years before anybody could even talk to him. Yeah, like he kind of went out and I love this conversation because, and Matt and I have talked about this before, there's a device by a doctor, Persinger, which got dubbed the God helmet, right? And you put this helmet on and it stimulates areas of your brain, and people were on top of having crazy alien abductions in a clinical setting. They were hearing the voice of God, and they were having these stimulations. So his predecessor, Dr. or maybe Professor Todd Murphy, wrote a book about this biological reason for deja vu, for reincarnation, and he talks about this universal experience within near death, and it seems to have a cultural relevance. So he even talks about, like, look, everybody in Thailand has a very similar story about going to the other side and then coming back.
Yes.
As to European descent, Western descent has a very similar story with more Eurocentric figures, and there's got to be a reoccurring theme. Most of the stories you hear have to have some similarities, right?
Yes. The point is that there are cultural differences, but the core is always the same. And the reason may be because going to that other area, that other world, there are no words or concepts in our language to express what you have seen. So if you see this mighty figure, this light, and you strictly believe in Jesus, you will see Jesus in it. If you are a Muslim, you will see Allah. If you're a Hindu, you will see Krishna. There have been people of other religions who have had an NDE that have seen Allah, Krishna, Buddha, you name it. All those major figures from religions have been seen. Not only Jesus. That's typically in the Western society that you see Jesus. But the thing is that what is a reoccurring theme is the unconditional love. And also, I would say something else. That's the second one that I think is very important. That is unity, the feeling that we are all interconnected. And that on a very, very basic level. Some go even further than just saying that we are interconnected. They say we are one, or they say we are part of God, or that we are God. I just quote these people because in my book, my book is written by me. My name is on the book, but it's actually the quotes from NDEs. So those are quotes of them. Sure. We are God. I am God. We are all one. So that and the unconditional love, and that we all go there, that is something that I think a recurring theme. Not in everyone. That's something else that I should say up front, is that not one NDE is the same as another. That makes it more difficult to research them. It would be nice if we had a tick box exercise that we say, well, you had a tunnel. Okay, that's good. That's good, really good.
White light, check.
Light at the end.
Dead relatives greeting you. Yeah.
Life review, good. Yeah. So you're getting there. No, that's not how it goes. Some people don't go through a tunnel. Some people don't have a life review. Some people don't see deceased relatives. So those are the ingredients that you would find in NDEs.
So I got to unpack a couple different things here, and I don't know which order we want to go in, but I want to...
And we're going to talk about psychedelics. I have a feeling, we're going to get there too.
Yes, that's where one of the questions is, but I guess... So we have been talking a lot lately about things like soul families and this idea that you sort of do have a celestial family or universal family that you kind of stick together and through each version of life, you can kind of go back and you kind of compare notes, and then you come back and then you go back and you know, like this idea. Now, that's an interesting concept. I'm still not sure where I sit on that, but I think it kind of makes sense to one thing that you said, which is I do believe that the interconnective nature of all of us is undeniable, right? And I don't need to die or close to die to believe that is true, right? Like, we've only existed this long because we work together. And in spite of the fact that we don't always work together, we still kind of need to. And if that's true here, it's probably true everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's only so many ways a species could thrive. And being a unit is one of the more obvious ways, right? So Soul Families kind of summarizes that, I guess, if you buy into that, because you're like, oh, look, we are sort of working as a unit, right? But when you say things like people like saw Krishna or, you know, or Jesus, like, those to me feel like the limitations of human language. And that's how we present them. I mean, is that kind of your sense of this? Is like, they're not necessarily seeing Jesus or Krishna, but they're sort of seeing that universal sort of presence. And like, that's the only word they have to describe it.
Yeah, or that's their closest connection to it, even.
Yeah, that could be the case, but it could also be the case that Krishna and Buddha and Jesus really lived, and they are being seen over there because they are part of the religion. So that's a possibility. But you talk about soul families. It's something that's not really something that I came across as something in NDEs that sticks out or so. I know that people talk about it, that they are part of a soul family. But then I would like to bring forward a different way of looking at it. Not necessarily that this is the way it should be, but it's I'm open on everything. Also reincarnation, for instance. If we are all one, and in my book you will find so many. Let me show you my book.
Please, yeah.
There's a lot of light on it.
It's I got you.
And we'll have links to it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll have links to it and everything like that too. So but sure.
It's, you know, in the book I have quotes of people that say so very clearly that we are one. Now, just stick to that idea of oneness. If there is a oneness that we return to, like for one person, she said that she had her near-death experience. She left her body, and that was such a nice feeling because she left all the anxiety, all the pain, and then there was only consciousness. And then the next thing she says, but even my consciousness is something that would dissolve in this oneness. So this is just one quote, and that made me think, if there is this oneness, why would we need a reincarnation? Why would that particular spirit that had just dissolved in this oneness, like a drop that was dissolved in the ocean, why would that particular drop come back again and go into a different body? Moreover, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Because what you experience in your life is actually experienced by the oneness itself. So the oneness lives every life there is, or has been, or will be, just as a thought. So the oneness leads all the lives. Why would you need to have a strain of lives or string of lives? Not necessary. The oneness does it already and lives all the lives. So that's just an idea.
That's interesting.
It is, you know, so then my question would be, why have lives at all? You know, I mean, almost from a standpoint, it's like, look, if it's a oneness, it's experienced everything. If we call it God, it created the universe. It knows what's going to happen. Is there I guess, a congruent message that comes through besides this?
But that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's also a question that I asked of many of these NDEs that I interviewed. And that's actually, you're asking for the reason why we are on Earth, or why there is life at all, or why is this universe here? That's a good question. And I can't give an answer to that, but there are some answers in my book from NDEs. And let me give you a few. One of them said it's just a kind of a game. Another said, well, God was bored. He went to the movies.
Yeah.
He went to the movies, meaning he created this world and he is playing all the figures. She is playing all the figures because God is feminine, of course.
That is hysterical, because even in Brahma in Hinduism, right? He's asleep. He's having the dream, right? And the lotus comes out of his belly button and the universe exists, and he wakes and it closes. Wow.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So though there are many of those analogies. So this is one of them. Yeah.
But it's funny too, just on a completely different way of looking at that same concept. There was a show here in America called The Good Place, and it was about
the afterlife,
simulation, the afterlife. And as the show continues, they finally weasel their way into the good place, which is sort of like, I guess, heaven or whatever. And all the people that run heaven trick them into signing a contract to take over heaven because they're bored as shit and they all want out. They can't get out. They're like, we've been here forever, literally, and we got to get the fuck out of here. And like, so now they're like, and it was just really funny because A, I wasn't expecting that in the show, but B, I'm like, yeah, forever is a long time. Like if I was just sitting here bored out of my mind for that long.
But forever is not, that's another thing. There is no time on the other side.
Past that dimension, right?
That's an interesting thought. There, so many NDEs have said something is strange with time there. One said there is no time. Others have said all time was there at the same time. You have to think about that. All time is there at the same time. So your birth is still there somewhere.
You're existing in all of it at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's a different world, but it's more complete. It's you can see everything. One said, I saw how the world was created, how it came about, and I also saw how it will just how do you say that, be destroyed at the end. And then she said, every time I try to remember how that was, I get a headache. Meaning she is not allowed to know what that is, but she has seen it. She said, I know how it went, but I can't remember it anymore.
Which makes it sound even more like a game, right? Like, no, these are the rules. You can't get that, Yeah,
but if there's a game, you shouldn't know everything. And that's why we are here on Earth. We think that you think that you are on the other side, not being me. And I think that I'm here in my apartment, not being you. But actually, we may be the same substance. And once we die, we will understand that actually I was leading your life as well. And you are leading my life. It's a kind of strange thing to think about, but it's some, and another thing that I need to tell you and the listeners, because otherwise this all sounds very as if you have been on drugs or so.
Oh, that's all right.
That's all right. Yes. Yeah.
Some of our listeners are on drugs.
Or that it's all or fairy tales or so. There is some kind of proof that these experiences are real. That's called veridical observations, and maybe I should explain that a little bit.
Yes, please,
if you allow me. Typically with the veridical observations, someone would have a near-death experience, go out of his or her body, and then roam around where the crash site of the car was, or where the cardiac arrest was, or whatever the reason for having the NDE. And then they can walk around or float around and see what is happening there. There are so many stories of people who have seen what the doctors did, literally how exactly they can describe what was happening, the conversations, the tools that were used, the incidents that took place, everything. There are so many of these stories, and there's a good book. I'll flash another one there. This is a book. It's called The Self Does Not Die. It contains hundreds of these kind of stories these kind of stories just show you that your consciousness can be separate from your body, because you can, when it's separate, you can see in another room what is happening there, or you can see on the ledge of the hospital that there is a shoe there. Actual stories. But another category of veridical observations are from the other world. People sometimes get messages from the other world, and then later on, these messages seem to be meaningful, not seem to be meaningful, prove to be meaningful. I have an experience myself with an NDE, but another NDE, for instance, Fiola Horton, she had in her NDE, she saw deceased relatives, and then there was this person, this spirit that came towards her and showed itself as a child. And she was like, okay, what is happening? Why are you as a child? And then the child said, I was your brother that was born before you, but I passed away, and your parents never talked about me. But I'm still there. I have been on Earth. And then later, when she is resuscitated, she goes to her father and asks, is this true? And then the father has to say yes. So she couldn't have known this, yet she got the information on the other side. So the other side should be there too, I think. It's kind of proof. There are many of these stories. I can tell more, but there are many of these stories.
Yeah, we got time. This is a long format.
So let me ask you something about that, I guess, because that goes into the psychedelics that Tom was talking about.
Yeah.
Because I think any NDE conversation would be incomplete without at least mentioning that, right? We know a bunch of stuff about dying at a physiological level, not the least of which being your body gets flooded with serotonin and DMT. And both of those things, anybody who's ever taken LSD knows all about the love that serotonin can give you. And anyone who's ever done DMT can tell you that, you're on other planets, literally. So my question is, I don't know, you seem to have a lot of compelling conversations, but where do you lie on this is all neurotransmitter related versus an actual transcendent experience related?
Let me tell you about the research that was done in the Netherlands, in my country, and that was repeated because it was a prospective study in other countries like in yours and in the UK. And it was a study where it was a 10-year study in 13 hospitals, and every time someone who would be brought into the hospital with a cardiac arrest would be and resuscitated, because you need to talk to them later.
Sure. Yeah. This only works if you could talk to them.
Yeah. You come back.
Yeah. So then had to come back. And then the only question was, do you have a recollection of being out when you were unconscious? And then of the 344 people in the database, about 62 had the recollection, and those were the NDEs. And the interesting thing is that all of these people were dying. So all of these people had DMT kind of stuff created in the brain, or they had other substances in a dying brain. They were all dying, so they were all the same. Yet some group didn't have an NDE and other did. So now it's interesting to see what is the difference between those groups. And
that's less than a quarter of the people, if I'm doing my math right. That's not a great...
Like 18%. I think it was 18%. So it was a fairly small sample, yes. But that's typical. If you go around doing statistics and you go and see the other studies, then the percentage is quite low. It's in that range.
So of all people, you're saying that that's a fairly typical percentage of people that would have an NDE at all?
No. I think I believe that when you die, you will have this experience, but you have the full experience. Mm-hmm. Now you can only say you came back. So how complete was the experience?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
so you're missing out on a portion of the experience.
You don't know what's out there. Maybe there's at the end when when people really can't go back again, there is this monster. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, right.
I don't
So there's a
that.
We only get so far before we come back, or else we don't come back.
What did they say was I mean, did they discover any differences between the 18%?
No, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. There was no difference in the things they looked at. So the substances created in the brain, in a dying brain, they all had a dying brain. Why did one portion have an NDE and the other not? A lack of oxygen is one of the things that has been often mentioned. They all had lack of oxygen. And medication was not something that would explain this. And the religion, I think that was also something that they looked into.
And that was all over the map too?
It didn't have any significant difference, no. So, yeah, with DMT, I know, and ayahuasca and stuff like that, you can have very interesting, but also very painful experiences. Very distressing experiences. And also there is a minority, a very small minority of NDEs where people have a distressing NDE. But there's not too many of these people that come out to tell about their story. So it's difficult to research. But what we do know is that there's one conclusion that we can draw, is that we cannot say that if you have led a bad life, you will have a distressing NDE. And that if you have led a very good life, apart from the idea, what is good? If you have had a good life, you will have a blissful NDE. No, there have been cases of people and I can give these cases of people who have run around killing other people on a big scale. This person had a wonderful NDE, apart from his life review. That was
his terrible
awful.
review. Yes, his terrible life
review was kind of bad for him. But the rest, he was met with a lot of love. And then there are cases of average housewives, or people, men who have had a distressing NDE, but there's no reason why they didn't do anything special. They didn't go about killing people or so.
Right.
So that there must be another reason why there are distressing NDEs. And what we think of now, what the theory is that things from your unconscious pop up during your NDE, and they interfere with it. So what I discovered also is that if you have been in a religion where there is hell and purgatory, and you're really afraid of that, some of those cases could be led back to that belief. I don't say that there have been also people that have been afraid of hell and purgatory and have had a wonderful experience. But they say later, these particular cases, that this was perhaps the reason that they had this distressing NDE, or that things from the collective unconscious pop up as well. So it may be kind of random. We don't know. It's something that we really have to research. But to keep it on a positive note, there are also NDEers who explicitly tell me that there is no hell and purgatory. One of them said, I was told there is no hell, there's no purgatory. And another one said, we all go home. That's what I understood. We all go home. And another one said, there's no hell. So I think, and I believe that we all go to this wonderful place. Also the people that you don't like.
Sure.
It is there for everyone, no exception. Yeah. So in my talks, I always ask people to remember or have in their mind one person that they really dislike. Could be a politician, or could be the neighbor or their boss.
I love how you started with that one. Could be a politician. I'm not saying that.
Universally hated throughout history.
Also,
I'm not making any suggestions.
Also, those people have the light within them.
Yeah. Well, so here, let me ask you a foundational question, I guess, and I probably should have asked this earlier, but like, are you coming at this more out of scientific curiosity, or are you coming at this, was your basis for this more spiritual / religious?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, what was the motivation there?
Yeah. Well, it changed. It's, the first thing that I came across with NDEs was from the book of Raymond Moody, who coined the term. And it struck me that one of the people that he mentioned in the book had a life review, and she said there was no judgment. And then, I'm Roman Catholic, hell and purgatory there.
Sure.
Yeah, we get it.
And got it baked in. K through 12 Catholic school here, buddy.
I never bought that story. I thought it was ridiculous. But yeah, you're being told that by your parents and by the priest, so you should believe it. But there was on paper, black and white, and I thought, well, she is right. And that's where I started looking into this. And then I went to compare NDEs with religions. And that was really interesting to do. And then I went over to more real research. I was trying to get all the quotes together. And that's the latest book. And I think, that's the best book because of the people who have their quotes in it. It's not because I wrote it. It's because of all those wonderful quotes of NDEers. And I find them brave that they come forward and tell their story. I think more of those people should do that. It's very important that we all start to see the truth, that there is this other world, that we will be all happy, that being nice to others here on earth is good for you. You will have a nicer life review later. So also the politicians should listen to this.
Yeah. Who was it? It was either Terence McKenna or Steve or Leary about saying, like, I can't wait for that 13 seconds of death where my whole brain gets flooded with all these psychedelics and I could just experience the universe for the last couple seconds. If I was the other 80%, 70% who didn't have an NDE, like had no recollection of it, I'd be fucking pissed. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, honestly, fuck. Not everybody comes back anyway. It's not like you really have that choice.
No, assuming that I was one that came back, I'd be super pissed, especially doing this show and all the weird shit we talk about and think about. Man, I'd be so angry. I'd be like, God damn it, really? Seriously?
What happened? It was dark for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Or worse yet, I don't know. Last thing I remember, I was driving.
What you wish for, I would say. I mean,
that's very true
people
too.
who've had a near-death experience, they go through a big change, and it's not easy. It's
I
such
can't
a
imagine
massive
that
change.
that's easy. No, of course not.
But I mean, you hear about it on a smaller scale with psychedelics, and even it was kind of funny when you were talking about people having the bad life review. It's like, well, people have bad trips sometimes,
Yeah. Well, there's so many analogies to what.
Yeah, I mean, it
Robert,
seems
you're talking
so
about
universal,
with psychedelics,
right?
Which I think is one of the allures, and not to move the topic at all, but I think there is one of the things that is so attractive about the psychedelic journey these days is that you don't have to have an NDE to necessarily experience some of the more positive benefits
exactly
of the experience, and we can kind of, I want to say this lightly, but we have a way to manipulate those results on an earthly plane. I could take a whole bunch of mushrooms. I could take a little bit of mushrooms. I could take a whole bunch of DMT. I could take a little bit of DMT, right? So you can sort of, in a weird way, control that a little bit. And we like to control things because we're humans and that's just what we do. But I do think that having a window into that is hard. But I know a lot of people that have taken that journey through psychedelics and I guess consummate to the difficulty of coming back from an NDE. I think there's a lot of people that have difficulty coming back from a really positive psychedelic experience for the same reason. You're like, I've seen the other side and it's better. Why the fuck am I going to come back to this nonsense? Because that That is
seems
way
like where
more.
It's at. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like where it's at. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think that that's as uncommon as you might think in the world, depending on who you're talking to.
Maybe you mentioned something about life reviews, bad life reviews. There are no bad life reviews in the sense that there's always love for the people who have their life review. Also, this person that went about killing a lot of people, his life review was awful because he could see what he did to others, had done to others. Like he killed people in other countries for the US government. In one case, he blew up a whole hotel with 50 people in it, of which 49 were innocent, just to take out one. And he felt all the lives that were taken away by his action. And the result of that, also with the wives and children of those men who were killed. Imagine that. You can feel what your actions do as if you are the other. That's the thing that
that ties back to that oneness, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You feel not only as an onlooker what it does to the other, you are the other. You become the other. You become the person that you assassinated, but you also become their daughter or son, and feel what they went through in the rest of their lives without a father.
That's insane.
On a smaller scale, everyone can think of the things you do. And now, actually, at this moment, we have wars going on, like Russia and Ukraine, and Israel and Hamas. You know, I pity all those people that kill each other and are happy for killing the other side. They don't know that they will feel the other side as if they are the other side.
At some point.
That's a big stretch to go, but that's what it consistently comes
You brought back to
out.
Christianity. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. But they don't know what they do. They have no idea.
Yeah.
But they will have to go through this. And also the people that enthusiastically cheer what is happening there.
And you know what? The only proof that I have in my own life that reincarnation could be like a real thing is the fact that I in this life have gotten increasingly more aware of impact of decisions, of my decision in particular, about those around me and the greater good. And even if it's ridiculous, I can just see this rippling outward, be like, all right, if I do this, then this happens and that happens and that, And a lot of times that shapes my decisions. And I'm wondering, I'm like, the only thing that makes sense, because I haven't had any of these learning lessons. Like a lot of times these are just sort of thoughts going through my head. I'm like, I've never lived that, but it makes such clear sense to me that the only explanation is I downloaded it from another experience that I don't recall having, or I wasn't a part of, or whatever. Or maybe I'm tapped into that oneness differently than I used to be. I don't know. I've taken more psychedelics in my adult life than I did in my earlier life. So maybe I opened up a door. I don't know. But there is this sort of I guess for me anyway, I wish everybody could feel that way, because there's a lot that I no longer would even consider doing because of that impact. And maybe it's a fear of having a review that said, hey man, now you got to feel this on every side. I'm like, no, I don't really feel like doing that. Let's just make that not happen in the first place.
Just be better.
Let's just be better to start off, and then we might not have to get there. Right. I mean, I'm certainly not saying, no one's perfect, but but that is an interesting way of looking at it, because if you say, I got to come back and revisit this later, ain't nobody wanting that. No.
But I want to add something there. It's not like when you have your life review and you see, my God, I did such a nasty things and it's horrible and the pain is excruciating. There is no judgment at the same time. It's just that it seems to be that you need to go through this in order to see where your position was on earth, or your position in the whole scheme of everything. Because before you came here, you decided to do this and that. So how did you play out? There's no judgment. That's another thing that I've thought was so interesting. There is no judgment. But it doesn't mean that you can go about doing nasty stuff to everyone because you won't be judged. You won't be punished.
Feels a little like you said that. But...
you will feel not very happy.
Sure.
When you have done these things, because suddenly you realize, you remember your basic, what you basically are, love, and you went against your basics. You went against the love by doing these things. That hurts. That's not very nice. No judgment, no punishment, but it will not feel very nice. That's the whole idea.
That is interesting. Maybe that's the checklist you use for the next go around to kind of say, okay, here's the lessons I learned the last time. Let's kind of maybe incorporate those into the next go around.
You know, it's so funny where clearly there's this stigma about death and there's this fear of death. And as Matt said earlier, like here we are talking about longevity to push off the inevitable, but it doesn't. Like this feels so heartwarming, heart opening, you know, loving that it's right. Kind of like, wow, why do you want to keep going? Let's just get to the end. Let's get to the good part.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, there's a reason for everyone's life. I don't know what that is, but that's what people who have had an NDE said. There's a reason for you being there. Let me tell you also stories of NDEers who, there are so many NDEs who don't want to come back again because it's so nice there. So now there are so many stories that people are being told you have to go back. There's a reason why you are on Earth. And then they say, no, I don't want to go back. And then sometimes they are shown what their purpose was on Earth, and that they agreed to that purpose, to doing that before they came on Earth. Before they went into this little baby body to become what they are now. So they know that they have to do something, and then they are willingly going back again. It's never that you are forced. Well, there are people that think they are forced, but I think eventually they realize that there is a reason for them to go back, a good reason to go back.
So that's interesting. That actually kind of goes back to the soul family thing we're talking about, because one of the sort of big tenets of that construct is that there's a predetermined reason that you're choosing to take human form, right? Like that you're... This is at least...
Or on this planet.
That's a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a co-authoring between your celestial body and your corporeal body.
Like a contract almost.
Yeah, like a contract. Yeah. All right, you get to go back and do this, but it's under these conditions, right? And that idea is pretty compelling because, you know, people get tied up, at least here in the United States, like they get often tied up in like what they do for a living and tying that to their identity.
And that's
right?
who they are.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's like that in a lot of places in the world, but like, I know too. It's really crazy here, but people get real knotted up about that. But like, let me tell you, I can't imagine that your purpose was to come down and be the CEO of
to become an accountant,
an oil company, right? Or you know, so like when I look at things like that, I'm kind of like, you know, people that I know that are sort of evolved into the answer that they've come up with about why they're here are people that have done a tremendous amount of internal work, a tremendous amount of meditation, spiritualization, visualization, like work on various therapies, uncovering trauma, this, that, and the other. They get to that, but it's not before doing a Herculean amount of work, right?
Themselves,
like it's, you know, they don't just like wake up and they're like, oh, I was supposed to lead children out of Africa, right? No, that's not. You might get there after 50 years of work, but like it's not where you start, right? And so I guess where I was going with that is, do you have people in your interviews that have had these NDEs that kind of fit that? They were just an accountant from Topeka. They were just like some dude who didn't really mean anything in the world, and then all of a sudden, boom, they've got this like crystal clear mission.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen that?
The thing is that we all have a mission. That's what you say. And when some people do know what their mission is, but when they come back again in their body, they forget it. It's not accessible anymore. And I think the reason is that if you would know it, you would just rush to do that and hope to die soon. And that's not what is.
Yeah.
There are
all right.
other
Let me check this off.
Yeah. I did it. Take me now.
That is great, Robert. I'm going to ask you the most mundane question right now. And while we were talking, I'm looking at your book on Amazon. I can't wait to get it and read it. I see you have a PhD. What was that in, and how did that jump you into this career, or down this path? I should say, not career.
Okay, my PhD is in economics. I have to say.
So we're sitting here making fun of accountants, and he's like,
Adam Smith was an idiot.
I love being an economist, and it shows you that even economists or accountants can be spiritually oriented. It's something that anyone can do.
What probably will go down in history is the most perfect answer to that question, because we're sitting here making fun of accountants as a general statement. He's like, don't call on me. Don't call me.
I should have said that I was an accountant.
No, but it's so interesting to me. Clearly, there was a drive. There was a purpose for you to do this, right? It wasn't just like, hey, you know what? Here I am talking about economics, and then one day it's like, you know what this seems to pair nicely with.
It was an interest that got out of hand. Some people have a hobby that goes out of hand too. I mean, anything can happen to you. It's not only that you go to your work and come back and sleep and go to your work again.
That sounds so mundane. That sounds so horrible in some ways, that sort of have something that is a passion that gets out of control it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's nice to have something that you can't control.
Well, that's the fun part about curiosities. They're curious, right? Like they go wherever they go. But like, I think it's funny that was your journey. And I was like kind of kidding when I was talking about, but it's really like, sounds like you're living that story, because, you're on one path and then you kind of meander into another one. But having an eye into that, I think this goes back to what we were saying about people discovering this through work of various kinds, is like, if you're open to the idea of finding your mission, then you probably will be more likely to find it. If you kind of think it's bullshit in the first place, you're like, fuck it, I was just born to be an accountant because I have a degree in it and I've studied it and whatever. That's not really finding your mission. That's just sort of like settling into a groove that, and those are very, very different expressions, right? Like that's not.
Yeah, if you that applies to everyone. If you go into the silence of your heart, you don't need to meditate for hours. You just have to allow the very soft voices that are around us to talk to you. It sounds maybe spooky, but there is this other world is also a sort of conversing with us, but we never listen. So if you take time to just feel what your heart tells you, your heart tells things that are right. Because the core of every person is this unconditional love. That's the heart. That's the core. If you tune into that, you align to the light, you align to the spirit, the good spirit, and you will be guided. But if people don't do that, that's also fine. There's no punishment. It's some people are on earth to do whatever, and without thinking about it, because you're made up also by your genetic material. Sometimes that gets in the way. Let me don't give you an example there. You can go there yourself. Or a nurture, that you are brought up in a situation that you don't know how it can be different, that there's no love in your life. You didn't have any good role models. I mean, being in such a position is difficult. in order to have a loving life. But again, also for people in, let's say, the back streets of our cities that use drugs and do criminal stuff and whatever, they are also loved beyond their imagination by this other world. We are all loved beyond our imagination. That's what I understand from NDEs, and that's what I want to stress.
And I think that's really awesome if there's like an up ratchet of that upon death. Like that's amazing. I think what actually I'm taking away from this a little bit more though is you could sort of prime the pump, as it were, by just being less of an asshole while you're here and just approaching things with like a little bit more of a love focus rather than, you know what I mean? Because like, hey, if we're just taking this at face value and my reflection is less difficult, well, that's an up level right there, right? Like, and I don't want to necessarily go down a bad path, but oh, by the way, I also spend a life, you know, approaching people with like love and empathy and everything else. Like that doesn't suck either, right? Like, so it's like kind of an all around better way to approach it.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm.
And it's also the small things. That's one of the people in my book. She had her NDE and she had her life review, and she was kind of very satisfied with the life review. She was happy with the things she did. She had been always nice and stuff like that. And then it went over for the second time, and they showed her instances where she could have made a difference for the people she interacted with. And those were the people just at the cashier or in the cinema or on the street or wherever. She saw that if she had smiled to someone, this person would have gone home a little bit different and not being that brutal to the children and the wife. And in another case, she said, if I would have been just saying a few nice words to this person wouldn't have thought any further about committing suicide. I mean, we can all do these things. We have that power. So, and since she said that to me, I tried to do 3 times a day at least that I smile at someone that I don't know. And then cool. It's interesting to see the reaction. It's so nice. Some people are like, oh, what?
Yeah. Well, you know, Robert, it's funny that we did a whole episode on a report where, what was it, Sweden or something. If somebody smiles, they think either they're crazy, they're drunk, or they're American.
Yeah.
And sometimes if they're American, they're the other two too.
Yeah, they're also all of them. I run a lot, Robert.
Often in America. I can't remember that everyone smiled at me.
It depends on where you're at.
It depends on where you're at. And also it seems to be...
not New York City, maybe.
Well, no, I don't know. I think New York is infinitely softer than Baltimore.
No, in New York is nicer than Baltimore.
Nicer,
right?
yes.
Like, so if like when I brought my kids there by myself, my wife stayed in Baltimore, I went to New York City, and the kids were like 4 and like 2 or something like that. I had like 3 people offer to help me bring the stroller down the subway stairs. Like they weren't smiling at me when they did it, but they did it without like jumped right in. It wasn't even like, you know. And New York, I lived there for 10 years. I mean, that city is extremely nice, especially if you're doing like human-centric things like carrying a baby down the subway. Like it's like a village, literally, mentality, right?
Okay.
But like I run a lot, and it's a constant sort of experiment in my head. I smile and wave at every person that I pass, every single one. Whether they're walking, whether they're biking, whether they're running. You can't imagine how many people look at me like I'm a fucking wacko.
Lunatic. Yeah,
like, they're like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? It's like 8 a.m. and we're running. Like, we don't want to be running. And I'm like, no, I absolutely want to be running. I'm fucking psyched to be running right now. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's hot. I don't care if it's cold. And I'm just going to wave because you're also here. Like, we're acknowledging that we're sharing this experience. And they're like, fuck off. I don't want to talk to you at all. And then other people are like, oh my God, you waved at me. Yay. Like, you know, like, and they're just, you know, so it is a funny.
You have that experience that people
I do it literally
happy.
several times a week. I do this like, cause I've been doing it for years. It's like, because people don't really interact. And it's like one of the things I tell my kids, I'm like, you know what? Like, you can't live in your phone because like the phone isn't the earth.
That's it.
Matt
like,
wants an A on his life review. Matt
I
wants
want an A on my fucking review. Damn it. Like I want an A.
I think, God, man, we could keep this going forever.
Yeah, no,
I feel like this has been so great.
So, Robert, are you continuing this work before we kind of start winding down? Are you still involved in this work? Are you still exploring it?
Yeah. Actually, I am also involved in IANS, and IANS is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. It's an organization in the US, but it's international. So we have groups also in Europe and in Asia and in Africa and Australia, everywhere. And they have a conference every year. Next conference is going to be in Chicago. And I'm board member of IANS. There's another guy from abroad. He's from Canada, but I'm from Europe. I'm a little further than he is. It's a very nice bunch of people. It's interesting to go to the conference. It's at the end of August. It's always just before. What is this day that you have? Is it President's Day or so?
We just had President's Day.
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just before the weekend before that. And it's always nice to be there. There are a lot of talks. People tell about their NDE. People tell about their research. You can meet everyone. There is a wonderful atmosphere there because we all know that we are talking about this wonderful experience that so many people have had. So the atmosphere is really very nice. And I can just only tell your listeners and you think about going there. And
that's fascinating. I just pulled up that. I pulled up the site.
I'm going to become a member.
Yeah, I'm like sitting here looking at it. And I'm like, and this is what I love about 2025. There is a group for everything. You want to pick some obscure topic, not saying this is all that obscure, but like almost anything. There's a conference on every topic ever made, right? Like, and I love that. And what I really think is funny is on your homepage, you have this thing that says an open letter to Al Pacino. And I'm sitting there going, so I didn't even know this. I guess Al Pacino had a
brush with death.
NDE. Yeah. And like got you guys all in a huff. Like what happened here? Like
he was kind of I don't know, sour that he didn't have an NDE or so, and
okay,
and that's why he said there's nothing there. But then not everyone, as I told you, not everyone who has a brush with death has an NDE.
Yeah, he's on that side. It's like, fuck, I feel gypped.
Exactly.
Like I didn't.
You know, it's very funny. I used to love The Far Side, and The Far Side had literally the caption was a brush with death, and it was the Grim Reaper holding a giant paintbrush, and it doesn't translate into talking, but it was hysterical.
Yeah. I think so. Wait, hold on. When is this? I'm trying to see where it is because I'm like, well, shit. Do I have to go to? I got to go to Chicago.
I
like Chicago.
27th through the 31st.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, you found it already. Okay.
Oh
good.
Yeah, believe me. While like we're both ADHD, so we're entirely engrossed in the conversation. But like your book is in my Amazon cart.
Yeah,
and everything you've said, I've been like, oh yeah, that's all right.
That makes sense.
You will be surprised with all the quotes that there are there. Yeah. Let me give you one. Something that I always love. This story. It's from a little girl, Christina, who had her NDE, and not all NDEs are caused by something nice or something. In this case, she was assaulted by two men who tried to drown her. And what happened is that she was underwater with her face facing up, seeing the sun through the water. And at the same time, she was hovering above the whole scene. And she saw her father coming towards her rescue because the father had heard her scream. And the father was, I don't know, some 100 yards away or so. And And so she was rescued, but she had her NDE. And in her NDE, she went through this tunnel. So that was typical. And at the end of the tunnel, there was this elderly man who said, you cannot go further. And then she was sad that she couldn't go. But then the man said, well, life is kind of easy. I'll give you, it has 4 ingredients you just need to do. And and then he gave the 4 ingredients, and that's love, be loved, just be, and experience life. And there she went again, back to her father. And she was so depressed because she wanted to stay there. And she is still she's now a grown lady of, I don't know, 40 or so, maybe 45, I don't know. But she still is she can cope with it now. That's what I said. It's not really, it's a gift, but at the same time, it's also difficult to have a normal life afterwards. And she said this to me, so those are the 4 ingredients: love, be loved, just be, and experience life. And the just be and experience life is just the thing a bored God would do. That's where we are. And love, be loved, you need to do something for that. It requires action. And I thought that was interesting. So this is a quote that I really like.
That is a beautiful way to think.
No, it is a beautiful way to think of
it. This conversation as a whole, is some parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, for sure. So, Robert, where do we send people to talk to you, and how do we find more about you? Like, where can we send people?
It's on my website at www.bobcoppes.com.
And we're going to link to that in the in the show notes,
it's very easy. Bob Coppes and then .com. And there is a file that people, if they have questions, they can always ask them to me through this file. They can always reach me if they want to talk about things, anything.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming by. This was very cool.
Super uplifting too, talking
loved
about
it
death.
Too.
Huh?
You are 2 very enthusiastic. How do you call it? ADHD.
ADHDs. Yeah.
We have all the acronyms. Don't worry about it.
It's actually kind of funny that we lasted. I think Robert, you're probably episode like 130 something, right? And we made it this far without talking about near death. Like, I think that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah. And this was just an amazing conversation, though, and it dovetails into the human experience.
Spoke about near death experiences in your
We've had some out there topics too.
We've had some out there topics, and also we've talked a lot about death, like just in general, and like how it's a undercurrent of a lot of the work that we and people like us do, which is to avoid it at all costs. We're very anti-death around here, sir.
That's how we are created. If we wouldn't be having fear of risks or whatever, then we would die too soon, and we wouldn't be able to create children, and the whole species would die.
Yeah.
That's very biologically driven right there.
Well, we talked to somebody last night that said that their mentor, or one of their mentors, is pressing 90 and just started a new mission in his life. And I mean, that's crazy, right? Like, I mean, most people would think that that's nuts. 90, you're just sitting on a rocking chair, smoking a pipe, like watching the world go by. This guy's like just invented a new mission that he did when he was 20, 30, 40, 50. And so, when you talk about missions, like I hear these stories in my head going, you know what, man, my only problem is, when is a convenient time to die? Like, I got so much shit I want to do and so many missions that I want to accomplish that I don't think there's ever a convenient time for me to be like, no, I think I've done it all. I'm good. Like, I think I'm going to be the guy who's 90 and be like, what's next? Where do we start? What are we doing?
Do something else.
Yeah,
it's a secret when you have to go. It's that's supposed to be a secret. It's a
secret.
You just have to go on. Everyone, also your listeners, have to continue living and just try to enjoy life as well. That's another thing that I understood from NDEs. You also have to enjoy the life you're in, because on the other side, they are so interested in what we do, in how we do things, even the bad things. What we do, we are not always saints. Also, that part is interesting for the other side. So there's only love on the other side for what we do. That's one of the NDEs. She came there on the other side, and there was a big crowd looking at her life review, and she was so embarrassed because there were things that she didn't want to show, and everyone saw it. And then after it was over, everyone was cheering and happy, and she was like, it was as if I gave them pearls with everything that I did. So so what we do is important, no matter what. But try to make it the nice things, make it the loving and beloved things.
Well, Robert, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to dig in on the book and whatnot. Yeah. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was such a nice experience with you. Thank you very much.
Good. Glad.
All right, guys. Enjoy the weekend. I'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.